The sand was red, not the sunset kind of red, not the filtered Instagram glow kind of red. It was blood, and it was fresh. Emily stood barefoot, trembling, the waves licking her toes, her sun hat long gone, her heartbeat echoing louder than the crashing. See. In her hand was a torn piece of fabric, Sam's shirt, soaked in blood, clutched so tightly her nails had dug into her palm. She hadn't screamed yet. She couldn't. Her throat was clenched tight with the kind of fear that doesn't let you make a sound, the kind of fear that feels like truth. Because Sam was gone, and someone had left this. Behind her, laughter echoed faintly from the bonfire, where the rest of the group was still drinking and dancing, still pretending that everything was okay. They had no idea. 3 hours earlier, Piku Beach had been perfect. Turquoise water, golden sand, warm breeze, and no cell signal. Just the way they wanted it. Off-grid, isolated, healing, as Sam had called it. Emily had rolled her eyes at first, but deep down, she'd needed this break. After her miscarriage, after the way Sam had started pulling away, after that one night he came home smelling like vanilla perfume he swore belonged to his co-worker. This trip was either going to save them or end them. They both knew it. The group was Sam's idea. Invite old friends, drown the tension in alcohol and salt water. There was Jason, Sam's childhood best friend, Zoe, the ex-girlfriend turned friend, and Lena, Emily's cousin, the only one she trusted, at least she used to. That afternoon, Sam had gone for a walk, alone, said he needed space. Emily had watched him disappear down the curve of the beach, past the black rocks, into the trees. He never came back. She waited, then walked that way herself. She found the shirt first, torn, wet, red. Then the drag marks in the sand, barely visible, like someone tried to cover them up. Then silence. And now here she stood, staring at the bloody waves, her mind racing. Was this a prank, a sick joke? Or had she just been left alone? Again. Back at the bonfire, she finally screamed. The music cut. Lena ran to her, barefoot, panicked. Em, what happened? Sam's gone, Emily whispered. There's blood. Jason grabbed a flashlight. Zoe said it was probably a shark, or a nosebleed, or anything but what it looked like, but Emily saw it in their eyes. They were scared. Jason led the way back down the beach. They followed the drag marks, the shirt, the blood trail, then the knife buried halfway in the sand. Jason stepped back. Zoe gasped. Lena turned white, and then something shifted in Emily. She saw how they looked at each other, too long, too knowingly, and she realized something she hadn't dared to think. They know something. Back at camp, she waited for someone to suggest calling for help. No one did. Jason just poked the fire. Zoe lit another cigarette, her hands shaking. Lena didn't say a word. Emily's phone had no signal, no bars, no help. She went to her tent, zipped it shut, and waited. That's when she heard it, whispers, outside her tent. One voice, Jason, another, Lena, and the one that made her blood run cold. Zoe, laughing, like something had gone exactly as planned. The whisper outside her tent stopped her breath. She wasn't supposed to find it this soon. Emily's heart thundered in her chest. She didn't move, not a twitch, not a breath. Outside, the soft rustle of sand shifted, followed by a faint crunch, footsteps moving away. Not running, not panicked, just walking, like whoever said it wasn't afraid at all, like they already knew. She was too scared to move. She waited a full 5 minutes before unzipping her tent, slowly, silently. The beach was quiet now. The bonfire had turned to embers, casting a sickly red glow across the sand. Zoe's tent was zipped. Jason's was still open. Lena's, dark. Everything looked normal, too normal. Emily ducked low and crawled out, her fingers wrapped tightly. Around the tent pole she'd yanked from the ground, the only thing between her and whoever the hell was out here. She made her way to Lena's tent. "Lena," she whispered. No answer. "It's me, Em, nothing." She unzipped the flap, slowly empty, but Lena's bag was still there, and inside, her phone, still no signal, still no help. Emily stared at the blank screen for a second too long. A new realization clawed its way into her chest. Lena wouldn't just leave her phone, and Sam wouldn't just disappear. Not unless someone wanted it that way. 12 hours earlier, when they arrived, the place had looked like paradise, a stretch of coastline untouched by tourism. No buildings, no service, just a remote rented beach with an old camper van they'd all pitched in for. Sam had been distracted, quiet, but he tried. He helped with the tents. He kissed her forehead. He asked if she was okay. She told him yes. She lied. He had lied first. Now, he was gone, and she had no idea who she could trust. Present Emily returned to the fire, pretending nothing was wrong. Jason sat there, poking the embers with a stick. He looked up and gave her a strange smile. "Too calm? Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, just scared." He nodded. "Of what?" "Sam," she said, watching his eyes. "What happened to him?" Jason's mouth twitched. "He probably just wandered off. He does that, remember? Last year in Yosemite?" Emily stared at him. "That was for 10 minutes, not 8 hours, and there wasn't blood." He blinked. "You think something happened to him?" Emily didn't answer, because she already knew Jason was hiding something. Later, she crept into Zoe's tent. Her plan wasn't complicated. Look through her bag, find something, a note, a weapon, a clue. But what she found was a photo, folded, faded, hidden in Zoe's makeup bag. A photo of Zoe and Sam holding hands on a beach. This beach. The date was a year ago. Emily's stomach twisted. They had been here before, together, without her. And now, they'd come back with her. She didn't know what to think. Betrayal didn't even begin to cover it. Why would Sam bring her here, to a place he once shared with his ex? Unless he didn't plan to leave with her, unless she wasn't supposed to leave at all. 2:03 a.m. The wind picked up. Emily sat by the smoldering fire, wrapped in a towel, trying to stay awake. Lena was still missing. Sam was still gone. Zoe was hiding secrets, and Jason was too calm. This trip had been a lie from the start. That's when she heard it. A scream from the woods. High, female, muffled, then suddenly cut off. She ran toward it without thinking. Her feet pounded the sand. Her breath tore from her lungs. She didn't even notice Jason behind her until he grabbed her wrist. "Emily, stop!" She tried to pull free, but he held her tight. "She's gone," he said. "You don't want to. Go in there." "What do you mean she's gone?" she yelled. "Lena," he said quietly. "I found her in the trees. She's dead." Emily staggered backward. No, you're lying." "She was tied up," Jason said, shaking. "Her neck was—" He didn't finish the sentence. Emily doubled over. The beach tilted. The air turned thick. She dropped to her knees. Not Lena. Not the only person she thought she could trust. Not her cousin. Flashback. 1 week ago, Lena had told her something odd on the phone. "If Sam asked you to go somewhere remote, say no." Emily had laughed. "Why?" But Lena never answered, just said, "Something about him doesn't feel right anymore." Now she was dead. Jason sat beside her. "We have to leave at first light." "We can't leave Lena," she whispered. Jason looked at her and said the coldest thing she'd ever heard. "She's not going anywhere." 12 a.m. Emily couldn't sleep, couldn't cry, couldn't think straight. She walked the beach alone, trying to make sense of everything. She had to get off this island. She had to get help. She walked until the camper van came into view and saw Zoe, standing at the edge of the water, washing her hands. Red streamed down her forearms. She didn't know Emily was watching. Emily ducked behind a dune, her head spun. Zoe, blood, in the water. And Sam's shirt had been torn, not cut, like it had been ripped off him, like he'd been fighting back. Emily crawled forward through the sand, silent as a ghost, her eyes fixed on Zoe. She got close enough to hear her whispering. He should have shut up. He should have just played along. Emily's heart stopped. Zoe dipped her hands back into the water, then stared out at the sea. We didn't need her too. Now we do. Emily backed away slowly, her mind racing. Zoe killed Sam, or helped. Jason was covering it up. Lena found. Oughton and paid for it. She had to run. She had to crack a twig. Behind her she turned and came face to face with Jason. She didn't feel the first cut, just heat. Emily stumbled backward, eyes wide, staring at Jason's hand. The blade. Now slick with blood, her blood. He didn't lunge again. He didn't need to. You always ask too many questions, he said, voice calm, as if he was scolding a child. You could have just ignored the photo. Her legs wouldn't move. She stared at him, her brain screaming at her to run, scream, do anything, but her body frozen. That's when Zoe appeared behind him, hair damp, expression unreadable. She knows, Jason said. Zoe sighed. So it's time then. Emily turned and bolted. She didn't look back. Not at the blade, not at their eyes, not at the beach that had become a graveyard. She just ran. Minutes later, she crashed through the underbrush, pain streaking down her side. Her hand clutched the shallow wound, blood slipping between her fingers. She had no plan, no phone, no signal, no flashlight, but she had one thing they didn't. Panic. And panic, when used right, could make people sloppy. She moved fast, zigzagging, through trees, ducking under branches, leaping over roots, until she found it. The old dune shack. They'd passed it when they first arrived. An abandoned weather station turned shed, rusted from salt, partially collapsed. But the lock was broken, and it had a back door. She slipped inside, barred the door with an old board, and collapsed. On the dusty floor, blood pulsed in her ears. She was alone, but she was alive for now. 3 hours earlier, Sam had left the tent, said he needed to clear his head. Something about the fire, something about Zoe, still trying to talk to him. Emily hadn't thought twice. Now she knew better. Back in the shack, Emily tore the sleeve off her shirt and pressed it against the wound. Not deep, not deadly, but it would scar. She opened a rusted locker and found something unbelievable, a crowbar and an old dented toolbox with a flare gun inside. She blinked. This couldn't be real. Then again, none of this was. The truth unfolds. She stayed in the shack until morning, watching, listening. That's when she heard Jason's voice somewhere outside. She won't survive out here. Let her bleed out. Then Zoe's. We should have finished it last night. You're too soft, Jason. Killing Sam was enough. She's not like him, Zoe. No, she's worse. She still thinks people can change. Then silence. Emily's breath hitched. So it was true. They killed Sam and Lena and now her. But why? She searched the shack again and found something even worse than a weapon, a folder, water-stained, torn. But the label still showed Harrison Island Project, private sheet. Opened it, photos, notes, handwritten maps. They had been here before, not just for a vacation, for a reason. Flashback 10 months ago. Emily remembered something Sam once said in passing. Jason wants to start some kind of private survival retreat. Off the grid. Creepy, right? She had laughed it off. Now she realized it wasn't just talk. This island, isolated, unregistered, privately leased, had been their testing ground, and she, Sam and Lena, they weren't friends, they were subjects. Present Emily stumbled out of the shack with the flare gun in hand. She followed the cliff line. She'd seen boats pass before, far off. Maybe if she fired the flare from the highest rock, just maybe. She climbed, slipped, bled, but reached the edge. Wind lashed her face, salt burned her lips. She loaded the flare, pointed it skyward. "Please," she whispered, "let someone see." And fired. A streak of red exploded across the morning sky. 1 second, 2, 5, nothing until... A voice behind her. "Nice try." Jason, he lunged, she turned, swinging the crowbar. It connected, he dropped, but only for a second. She ran again, down the rocks, into the woods, toward the tents. Zoe stepped out, waiting with a knife. "Enough, Em, let's end it." Emily raised. "The flare gun, you first." Zoe smiled. "You won't shoot. I shot the flare." Zoe's smile faded. "You burned this whole thing down," she hissed. "Do you know what we had planned? This island was a sanctuary, the beginning of something bigger." Emily's hand shook. Zoe stepped closer. Emily's voice was ice. "You killed the only people who actually loved me, so now I kill you." She fired. The flare hit Zoe's shoulder. The woman screamed, stumbling back as flames licked across her tank top. Emily ran. 10 minutes later, she found the camper. Blood streaked its sides. A body lay near it, Sam, his eyes wide open, cold, but in his hand, a phone. She grabbed it, cracked screen, but still working, a satellite model. She dialed 911, no signal. Then the screen flickered. 1 bar, she hit send. It rang, once, twice. 3 times, 9/11. "What's your emergency?" Emily collapsed. The words tumbled out like vomit. The island, the murders, the trap, the fire. They told her to stay put. Help was coming. She didn't believe it, but it was all she had left. She curled up next to Sam's body and cried. For him, for Lena, for herself. For all the years she believed people were better than this. 30 minutes later, the sound of a chopper. Split the air, then shouts, boots, dogs. She didn't move, she couldn't, until a flashlight landed on her face. "Are you Emily Hart?" She nodded. They pulled her into the air, into safety, into the real world. Emily hadn't cried when she watched Sam's body airlifted away. She didn't cry at the hospital or at the debriefing with the FBI agents. Not when she handed over the folder. Not even when she identified Lena's partially buried remains in photos from the island's shallow grave. But now, 2 weeks later, in her sister's guest room, under soft sheets and a ceiling fan, she cried so hard she couldn't breathe. Her body shook violently. Her jaw clenched until her teeth ached, because it was real now. They were gone. She was alive. And everything else had shattered. The investigation had just begun. The news called it a survivalist cult trial run, privately leased island, fake trip invite. Wealthy backers funding extreme psychological resilience testing for the elite. But it was never about resilience. It was about control and pain. The deeper the FBI dug, the darker it got. Jason and Zoe weren't just twisted lovers with a plan. They were part of something bigger, an underground network of psychological operatives, former military, ex-corporate mind control consultants. And the island, just one of many. Emily stayed quiet until the day someone sent her a USB. No return address. Just a blank flash drive and 1 line of text on a sticky note. Phase 2 starts next summer. Emily's stomach dropped. She plugged it into an old laptop, running it on battery only, disconnected from Wi-Fi. Inside was a folder of documents, project blueprints, videos of other tests, lists of participants labeled as either assets or expendables. Her name was on one of the lists, next to Sam's and Lena's labeled expendables. That night, she made a choice. She could go to the FBI again. She could run, hide, change her name. But something deeper had awakened in her. Something dark, furious, and unrelenting. They had taken people she loved. They had buried lives. They had called it a project. She was going to call it war. Flashback 3 years ago, Jason's words now in context. "We all want to escape the noise," he'd told her back then. "Imagine an island where the world can't touch you, where people become their real selves." At the time, she thought he was being poetic. Now she knew what he meant, where people become their real selves. By watching others die, Emily didn't go to the police. Instead, she studied every document, every map, every old name linked to the Harrison Island project, and found something chilling. One of the senior consultants for psychological architecture was a retired professor, Dr. Howl, now running beach yoga retreats in Santa Cruz. Same beach where Jason had first bumped into Emily 2 summers ago. None of it had been random. She booked a spot, faked a new name, wore contacts, dyed her hair darker, and arrived at the retreat 3 weeks later, pretending to be another broken woman looking for healing. Dr. Brenner greeted her with a soft smile. "Welcome to the coast," he said. "We believe in rebirth here." Emily smiled. "So do I." The confrontation, she waited 3 days, built trust, took his morning classes, cried during sharing circles, until the night she found him alone on the sand, looking out at the ocean. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. She stepped beside him. "It is." Pause. Then softly, "Did they tell you Lena begged?" He froze, turned slowly. His eyes narrowed. "I'm sorry. Lena, the girl from Phase 1. You labeled her emotionally vulnerable, likely to fold." Emily turned to face him, her voice ice. "You were wrong." He didn't blink. "I don't know what you're..." She pulled out her phone, played the first 10 seconds of the USB footage. His face paled. "Where did you get that?" She stepped closer. "From your own system. Password Phase 0, right?" Brenner's mouth opened, closed. Then he said something that would haunt her. "You don't understand what we're doing. This isn't cruelty. It's evolution." Emily didn't scream, didn't cry. She just pressed her phone closer to his chest. "You buried my best friend. You murdered my fiancée. You lit people's trauma on fire and called it progress. You don't deserve evolution." What happened next? Only 2 people. No one of them disappeared the next day. Dr. Brenner, the other. Emily returned to her city, quietly, without drawing attention. No charges were filed, no body was found. But the Harrison project was exposed, thanks to leaked documents, all scheduled to drop from multiple anonymous accounts. The project's leaders went underground. Some were arrested, others fled the country, and Emily, she finally slept through the night. 1 year later, she stood by a different beach now, one where the waves didn't feel like they were whispering secrets. She wore Sam's bracelet, Lena's necklace, and in her hand was a final letter she'd written. "To them, you didn't die for nothing. They won't hurt anyone else. I promise you that. I'm still standing, and I'm not done." She folded the paper, buried it beneath the sand. The waves rushed up, brushing the shore, and for the first time since that cursed trip, Emily smiled. Sometimes it takes losing everything to find the fire that was always inside you. They broke. Her tried to erase her, used her love as bait, but they forgot one thing. A woman who survives betrayal, grief, and hellfire doesn't crawl out, she walks out blazing. The end.